Welcome to Empower Hour. Let's get growing. Good morning, everyone. Really good to be here. I feel like I haven't been here in forever. I'm a little groggy this morning. I'm in Connecticut, been hovering around the Putnam County area. My mom's on home hospice, which some of you know, and just grateful to be able to be here and be present. Right now, my life is very much family, existing clients, and then business building. And I have been diving into the franchise world. I built out this hybrid group program, Beyond Limits, the Business of Becoming, which many of you know about. I can plug in 1 to a million people. I'm on a million people mission in my business. I'm much more driven by impact than money. And so I think I have figured it out how to impact that many people. And today's guest actually is one of the people that I met through another great connector and client, David Vogel, who I love dearly, but I think he's on the slopes in Park City, Utah, so he may not join us in the audience today. He's in Park City, Utah, where there's no snow skiing. Sorry, David. I don't mean to laugh. But yeah, so our guest today is not only a systems genius, which we're going to hear more about, but he's also an amazing connector. And so maybe he'll even give us a little insight to that. So today's guest, Conrad Ruiz, is the founder and principal consultant of Wellaware Inc., a time and operations management consulting firm. He works with founders and growing organizations across all industries, from professional services to healthcare, property management, helping them to reduce chaos, reclaim time, and build systems that we will actually use. His superpower is translating scattered ideas, bottlenecks, and overextended leadership, talking to you guys, into clear workflows, smarter delegation, and healthier operating rhythms. His work lives at the intersection of operational strategy and real execution. Conrad's mission is super simple: help people stop drowning in work and start operating with clarity, trust, and momentum. And we know I love that. So let's welcome Conrad Ruiz. Hi.
Hi, Jen.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I am doing fantastic. Really can't complain. The spring is here, made it through the winter, and only good things ahead, right?
Especially after winter, yes.
It's brutal. I literally went and bought like pants that are made out of sweater and would just like the sweater up top, sweater on the bottom, wool socks in the house, hat, scarf. And I'm really amazed at how you can be the temperature in. So I'm very spoiled, as you know, because I've been in the Dominican Republic a lot. But the temperature inside can say 70 degrees. But the fluctuation of the weather right now, the same 70 degrees inside never feels the same. I'm either freezing or hot, or freezing or hot. Like it. I don't understand that. How could it be colder or hotter when the weather's the same?
I don't miss the North by that particular degree.
Yeah, me either. Okay, enough babbling. I told you I'm a little tired today, so I tend to babble. You have to say, stop talking, Jen. So I'm super excited to hear your take, although I've heard it. I want to hear your take on systems and how it's going to help people reclaim their time, which is one of my favorite things, and all the other things that you talk about. So where do you start?
Well, I think one way to sort of build a healthy framework about systems and systems thinking is to say, especially in business, I start as any business starts, I start working in it. I do the things that the business requires of me. And the first system that anyone ever discovers in business when they do it correctly is I market so that I can sell, so that I can serve. I use
Right.
finances and administration to keep track of my money and my time. And of course, there's money and time investments involved in marketing, sales, and service. I just have to kind of figure out how to serve each of those spaces within them in order to get a job done, in order to effectively be self-employed in one's business. Systems thinking is then saying, well, how exactly am I going about performing all that? And to what degree am I deciding how I'm going to work on that performance differently? What sort of ways am I going to design how I market, how I sell, how I serve, and how I invest financially versus administratively in doing that? And that's kind of the second layer of systems thinking, is figuring out, I know what I'm doing in the business. Now, how do I want to work on those operational choices in order to be more efficient, be more effective, and then keep expanding and building out from there?
Right. And so do most people really have that kind of clarity when they come to you?
I think they reach out to me because they find themselves starting to scratch the surface of some of that systems thinking in an area that they're not very experienced with. I mean, we're geniuses at the things that we're good at. And I think when it comes to business systems as a very broad topic, there are a lot of things that you can find yourself out of your depth in. And to that end, there's also the other side of the problem, where for a lot of people, they've gotten so focused on working in the nature of their worlds, or focused on working on the nature of certain aspects of their world of business, of life. But at the end of the day, the things that they're needing the most help with are also the things that are conflicting with their pre-existing commitments. So there's
Right.
kind of a conflict of interest here, where it's like, I want to keep this system running as I'm currently doing it, but I need the system to change so that it runs in a better frame. And I'm caught somewhere in the middle. I call this the trap, where you don't really necessarily have the time to do both. And now sometimes you feel like you're in a really difficult sacrifice situation to make. It's not really a this or that kind of choice. It's not a chicken or egg situation, but it really much feels like that. And so a lot of people come to me going like, Carter, can you help me chase some chickens or hatch some eggs?
Yes. And then I think that there's also like a lot of underlying fear and scarcity that if I don't have my hands in everything and I'm not doing everything myself, like everything's going to fall apart and everything's going to crumble.
It's very possible. I don't think it's an illegitimate fear. It really does depend on the situation and how in control you've been and how responsible, like Atlas does shrug, if you will. So if you have been carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders and you start to let that go, you'll feel it. It may not be immediate. It may not be as, precarious. You may have been, over gripping on something that if you just gripped it a little bit less, you'd be expending a lot less energy and you'd still be maintaining, control over that element of the system. So there are some things to kind of work out there and figure out. But I try not to give people too much, pressure in either direction, that like, oh, everything's fine if you just stop and step away. Like, I don't think that's a legitimate thing to give people, a false sense of security around. But I also don't, I do also try to challenge that notion of like, hey, this isn't necessarily as critical as it may feel to you about, how much, time and attention and effort you have to put around it. And then, that those are things that I would invite they kind of, start to separate from, while those other things that are core to their business that they do need to keep alive, even if it's not necessarily the most important thing for them to focus on, then we have to talk about, okay, who and what's going to step into that, operation for you to help you not have to spend that time anymore.
I love it. So what's the first step if someone comes to you with overwhelm and just needs
like what hurts, right? Or like I'd say, show me your calendar, tell me how your day operates, walk me through. I already know what exists in a business. Again, it's that market, sell, serve, finance, administrate. Some companies will go into partnerships where their partnerships are related to marketing, sales, service, finance, administration. Either way, amongst all those conditions, you're investing time to whatever degree. In a perfect world, you have this complete audit of exactly where you spend your time. I can go to your calendar. I could see calendar block by calendar block, all neatly, nicely color coded. Like, this is where you spend your time. And you could give me a report that says, I put 16 hours in biz dev this past week. Okay, cool. I spent 4 hours in marketing. I spent this many hours selling, and so on and so forth. That's a perfect world scenario. Imperfect world scenario, which, tends to be where I find myself in, we ask the right questions. We spend time going through that type of, audit, because it does just take a little bit of intention and effort to have you retrospect on your days, and to see how that sort of draws a quick balance sheet or a snapshot of what's going on right now. You can then just tell me, ballpark it. I don't need this to be a perfect math of where you actually are spending your time. I just need the understandings in general. And then, of course, within that, I'm going to hear for very specific pains around, well, here are the things that seem to keep falling apart, or, based on the way that you're describing your business. Hey, I'm hearing, marketing isn't generating enough leads. Sales isn't closing enough deals. Service is slipping through the cracks. Maybe there's churn. Finances are always tight. And administration is, feels grossly inefficient. Okay, cool. To whatever degree that is the case across those 5 main, venues, let's dive into the one that sounds to be the most painful.
I love that. And from my perspective, I do something similar. Obviously, I'm not there to solve their operations and systems problems entirely. I try to give a little organization and framework and then tee them up for somebody like you. But in trying to diagnose the overwhelm, what I also find is they forget the clarity of what's the most important thing now. And they're so busy with hands in everything or trying to figure everything out that they're actually not prioritizing the things that they know are going to help their company grow the most. So how do you help them define what's most important now and what they should delegate first?
Yeah, so sometimes we have to get out of survival mode. And, I think a win is always a huge bonus to that. I think, taking someone off that feeling like things are becoming more and more difficult and going to things are becoming more and more easy is always really nice.
Yes.
So even if it may not be the most important thing to work on, if I can, through some kind of discovery or just, consultation, conversation, hell, I've even, speculated quickly into an intro call within like the first 15 minutes. Oh, let's just take this thing off your plate, right? Let's just delegate this one system responsibility of yours that you have, or let's just get you some help. And maybe we don't fully delegate it, but you just get assistance. And as a result of that, you're now, oh man, that's like one thing off my shoulder, and now all of a sudden I can think a little bit more. I can feel a little bit more free. Sometimes the priorities, and the reason why people shift towards those, tasks that they're like, hey, this is bogging me down, but like someone's got to do it. Like, yeah, what about the really important stuff? Maybe there's a lot of anxiety around the important stuff. We humans, we tend to get really stressed out when we leave shit behind. And sometimes we initially leave it behind because it seems scary enough at first. But then, it becomes even more pressing when we sort of, build tension around it by not doing it and not doing it and not doing it, and still keeping it in our brain, just constantly recycling it and regurgitating it into our task list. That sucks. That's a recipe for torture. So at the end of the day, if I can get you to, release some of that tension by taking some things off your plate, maybe I can hopefully get you to focus on something that is, bigger picture. You've been holding on to this thing for a long while. And then again, it depends on if that's still the thing that you should be, maybe we just need to flesh out that, I guess, unspoken, unclear. We never got around to actually really fleshing out that really important thing into just basic real steps. Like the anxiety escapes you when you find yourself really understanding clearly what is it you actually have to do, not just kind of having this like nebulous goal around some type of topic that's been sort of fleshed in your mind.
Yeah, I love that. So so what I see very often is they'll delegate and then take it back and then delegate and then take it back. What do you think that is all about?
Lack of standard operating procedures. The taking it back is, I don't really feel like you captured in you speaking to the system, you speaking to the assistant, if you happen to work through human help. You did not put together a clear standard operating procedure for what you wanted to be performed and what kind of results you were expecting to experience. And as a result, you take it back, trying to find a way to recreate the results that you put together for yourself, recreate that experience. On the lowest level, the person's doing it right. You just miss the experience of feeling like you knew it was done. And
Yes.
so what you're lacking in your SOP is a communication protocol where the person gives you the rewarding feeling of the fulfillment, the satisfaction that you know it got done, on top of the fact that you now know you didn't have to do it yourself.
Yes.
So you're lacking a reporting system.
Yeah.
If the results are just not meeting up, okay, let's sit down and dissect, well, what exactly were you doing to get the results that you wanted? And so why is it that this other relationship or this other system isn't achieving those same results as you are, at least not to the same degree or what have you, right? There's a case for perfectionists in this that, we may have to challenge. But in principle, I should be able to do the same thing you do. I hate to say that you're just not that special. But at the end of the day, for most of the tasks that we're, capable of delegating effectively, the truth is that there are plenty of folks out there. There are plenty of ways to approaching getting that thing done that don't necessarily involve your personal time, energy, and attention. And so you're replicatable, and that shouldn't be a bad thing.
Yeah, agreed. And I think I attract visionaries, like I just do. And then when you get under the hood, you're like, oh my gosh, how are they even thriving in the way that they are? And it's very counterintuitive for them to slow down or to not just keep moving forward and coming out with new ideas. And, so how do you handle visionaries like that?
Yeah, great people. Definitely, these folks are amazing at, building, small flying machines and getting them up and running and getting them working.
Yeah.
And I applaud that. But at some point you have to start building a carrier.
Yeah.
At some point you have to start building a fleet. And so we're no longer in your Spain of genius. We're actually now needing to talk about, how to replicate what you've done and refine that replication and really make a machine out of building and engineering the way your business runs. And so that's something that it's a meta skill. It's a skill that exists to scale things. And in that spirit, I try to tell the visionary, like, look, I want to know everything. There's like, I appreciate your brain when it comes to, how you originally built this plane. I'm going to start refining this build for you. I'm going to take your first draft or your nth draft and try to convert it into something that's a lot more finished. So please, like, I care about this child. I want to work with you on it. I just also want to develop it. I want to raise it into something much bigger and better. And so I want to share, that partnership with you effectively, if that's going to be the way we're going to operate together, or at least I want to share, at least for a period of time, what I want you to do, what I want you to focus on. And then it's like, here are all the resources that are going to help you do that. Again, we come back to control. We come back to the spirit of what matters. I think a lot of visionaries at the end of the day will not appreciate if all these ideas and all these things that they're building together and the wake of, messiness and disorder that they create behind them, if that ends up coming back to bite them, they become really unhappy. And I think that doesn't have to happen, right? You just need to give someone room behind you to take all of your ideas and interests and, not just, let them fall by the wayside, but to really help steer them into the broader system that you're building.
Absolutely.
That's the relationship.
I remember the year when I was in, with my real estate company, the year before we 10X was the year that I said, no more new ideas. We are not allowed to bring any new ideas to this table until, these, whatever we decided were the priorities, are implemented, fully executed, and determined whether that's what we're doing or not. And boom, like we grew from there. It was very, very, very powerful. Can you tell me about your track framework? I love framework. So
yeah, sure. So The track framework is built on it's an acronym. Track stands for time, relationships, actions, commitments, and knowledge. I try to think of track as like a railroad. So I always have like these like pictures, this iconography of like railroad tracks. And the reason why is because I really like this idea that like I'm on a system that's a destination in and of itself, but has a very defined, it's very linear in terms of where I'm headed. But I can always look back and kind of see the back pieces of the track. Like, how did I get here? Now, in more practical terms, given those 5 items that I just mentioned, I want you to imagine that you have 5 separate databases for just all the events in time that occur, all the relationships that you've interacted with, and to what degree, all the action items that you've ever stumbled upon, the ones that you've kicked off, the ones that you've deserted, the ones that you've delegated to others, the ones that failed, what have you, coupled with your commitments, the projects, the bigger overarching goals, objectives, the key performance indicators and key results that you strived for, the results behind your performance, those actions again. And then finally, knowledge, just your library of things that you've stumbled upon that you've learned about. It could be the URL of a company. It could be a really interesting article you read about a very specific topic that was near and dear to your world of business. Could be anything, could be all the standard operating procedures you write. If you imagine these 5 databases within the track, you imagine your ability to say, well, for today's call with Jen, there were no other times associated with maybe I keep, oh, Jen, I'm so sorry. I seem to have lost my camera.
That's okay.
Let me see about resolving that.
It happens.
Dematerialized into a cat. Okay, cool beans.
I still remember that meme, it wasn't meme, but that thing that happened during the pandemic with the attorney going on virtual court.
Oh my God, yes.
Turned into the cat and he's like, Your Honor. One of my favorite. All right, we got you back.
Grateful
Do you
to be
remember
back.
where you were?
Yes, I ironically enough, the track is very easy to get back on.
I love
So inside of the track, very, pragmatically speaking, you have a time event. Inside that time event, let's say that event is, Jen, there's this meeting, this event we're having right now. This is a time event.
Mm-hmm.
I could associate this time event with the last call we had in which this particular, invitation came up and we kind of got into the investment of getting us organized around this time that we have now. The relationship's present, it's you and me, right? Imagine records, just like any other CRM system, just like any other person who's trying to keep track of their Rolodex of relationships. There's you and me in this database. And both our records are actively associated with these time events. Okay, cool. Nothing out of the ordinary, crazy or different here. That's not the point, is I'm doing anything marvelous with information. Action items wise, Jen, you and I talked about, especially throughout between now and today's event, we talked about a number of different action items that we were going to commit to preparing for this content, for creating some valuable deliverables and things that people could take home. We'll have more action items to seek through thereafter. Like, I'll have to sit down with my marketing operations team and come up with different ways of converting this content into material that we're going to help publish as well. So we have all these different, agenda items that we need to address. As for what? For what reason? For the commitment of, in this case, marketing, right? This is a marketing event in its own right for you, for your world, for my world as well. We're creating content together. So it's also considered a kind of partnership. I have a commitment to establishing content partnerships with others, right? And being participant in collaboration efforts like this. I'm very grateful. I have certain key results and objectives around how much of this I'm trying to do, what type of results I'm trying to get from it. So I have that kind of logic baked in mind that, like, I need to spend a certain amount of my time. I need to be committed to engaging in these types of activities. And yeah, I expect to interact with a number of relationships, put in some time, and have a bunch of action items around it. So it's all interconnected that way. And then finally, knowledge, like, what information are we utilizing, or at least in this case, am I maybe utilizing for my own track? You have your own track of things that you're trying to keep an eye out. But on my knowledge base end, I may be referencing frameworks and materials and just information that I know of and applying it to this conversation. And I may want to reference back on that. I may want to, share more information about that. And so I have those library resources sitting in a database, again, that I've put together because it's something I tend to go back to. It's like a book in my portfolio that I have to kind of like, come back to and reread and maybe make some changes to it if it's a document that I edit. But in spirit, that's what track is all about. It's about recognizing that TRACK, time, relationships, actions, commitments, and knowledge, being able to reference back, study yourself, study the way your business is being designed and put together. The commitments do a really great justice of kind of giving you like what your compass is, if you will. But from there, everything else is just, it's performative. It's remembering people, it's remembering events in time, and it's taking all of it with a degree of sincerity, but seriousness of like, why does this exist? What's going on here? And is this the right thing for me to be doing? Cool. Compared to other opportunities. That's what track's for.
Yeah, I love the metaphor because I think of a couple of things. Number one, if you think about where we advanced the most in civilization was the railroad, right? Once that railroad was created in this country, I believe it started here, right? Absolutely. It opened up everything for us. And so it also brings me to thinking about how many people think when you're very structured and you have systems that you lose your freedom. Well, I think the opposite, right? And just think about that. Getting on a railroad gave us the freedom to be able to travel wherever we wanted to go in 20 times faster than we ever had in the past. So getting that structure actually gave us more freedom. I have a really quick story that I love to tell. When I was selling real estate many years ago, I had this family moving up from the Bronx, okay? And they were like insisting that they had to have 50 acres. I'm like, well, why do you want 50 acres? That's a lot to have to maintain and take care of and all those things. And she's like, well, because I don't want my kids on video games all day. I want them outside. I want them playing, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay. So I run into them like 3 months later after they bought the house that had the 50 acres. And I'm like, so how's it going? And she's like, my kids are inside all the time. I cannot get them to go outside and play or do anything. I'm like, all right. So then a few months later, I run into her again. And I said, oh, how are things going? She's like, fantastic. We fenced in about a quarter acre and we put this and that. And the kids are outside all the time. So they actually needed that structure. They didn't, when they would go out, it was too much. It was too vast. Are we in the yard? Are we not in the yard? And overwhelming. And so once they had that fenced in area, she couldn't get them to come back inside sometimes. And all the friends were over. So I'm just here to encourage that. Like it's counterintuitive, but the more structure you have, the more freedom you have to get into creativity. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where less is more sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And you can definitely get overwhelmed by biting off more than you can chew. And as a result, you kind of just like step away from the plate altogether, right? It just becomes unappetizing. Yeah. A lot of ways to look at it, Jen, but I love that story. I wanna take some elements from it.
It's really
for the long haul.
Totally counterintuitive. And I see that time and time again. I mean, even let's talk a little bit about this ability you have to connect people. So right now I'm breaking into this franchise world, which is a little overwhelming. Also, I'm not ready to like join organizations because I'm here taking care of my mom. Right? That's my number one priority. So I'm doing it through connecting and networking. I'm doing from the outside in at this moment. And I don't have a perfect system to that. I probably need to make an appointment with you, but I do have structure and a system and a process to it. And it's not perfect, but it works, right? For right now, because I can see like, even when I got on the call with you and I'm like, let me think back to the people that you connected. I can't even just remember. But if I didn't have that system and process, I'm not panicking because I know I can go right into my go high level, but I haven't connected them to you, right? So like there's still things that need to be perfected within that system and within that process. So like, for example, you buy a franchise and it comes with all these systems and you think I'm all set up with systems. but you don't have the systems to grow the company, right? You don't have the systems to do a lot of different things, right? That's really just the day-to-day operations. So what kind of systems do you put in place to help grow the company? Because I think a lot of people think of systems more as that day-to-day operations, but you're connecting with people that goes beyond day-to-day operations.
So, okay, let me try to, I'll start by organizing that train of thought.
Good luck.
No, I got it. So number one, I'm happy to talk about in a sort of a high level, the sort of the system that is networking as I've come to experience it, the way I've come to master it, and how I even just try to, like, to your point, you have me in a database, you have the relationships introduced you to into a database. You're missing a one, helpful element, which is like an associative property that says who introduced me to these people. Oh, yeah. It was Conrad. And that's part of your system of honoring the chain of connections. It's part of your system of, being able to recognize that, like, Conrad is a good networking partner to you. So if you ever needed more introductions and you needed more help, you go to your networking partners. Like, that's a good, efficient place to go. Well, who are my networking partners? Well, I tagged them all, right? Or I just filtered in my system by those who've introduced me to other people. And the ones who are, sorted at the top are the ones who, do this by the most volume, or maybe you have certain criteria in addition to that, where you're like, not just who make the most introductions, but who's made the most specifically successful introductions.
Yeah.
So whatever the definitions of success are in this case, is that definitions of success are, this person referred me the most clients, actually a really good referral partner. This person has, just given me access to relationships that have, solved many different problems for me. Just really high caliber. I don't know.
Right.
Could be a whole different way of things. So we could talk about that. We can talk about the taking of one's marketing, sales, service, finance, administration. And I'll leave partnerships behind on the side for now. But just taking that core five and just saying, okay, here are my two inputs. My two main inputs are money and time. If I put in X amount of money and X amount of time right now in the way that I'm doing it, I generate a certain number of results. If marketing, it's always to feed sales. In sales, it's always to feed service. In service, it may often find itself trying to refeed marketing and sales. If you have good clients, you want them to come back and buy more.
Yeah.
All right. You want them to introduce you to the people that are like them. You want them to be your referral partners, your evangelists, your supporters, because they're the best ones who can speak to your service. And so, or product, to kind of keep the consumer packaged goods and all those folks, and even the SaaS people, like, your product is your service. Your product serves, as I like to say. Your service is a product. Cool. Everyone's in the family now. We can talk about how you can recognize if I need certain, if I'm missing certain, there's an engine to this. Like, if I need more leads to then have more sales and service opportunities, and service delivery experiences, then, let's go focus on that marketing engine. Let's go create more there. Let's find out where additional time and money can be invested in some cases to reduce costs and still create the same quality output, or to increase costs, but drastically increase the amount of, return on investment in terms of leads generated. Okay, million different ways to go about performing that. What's most applicable to you? In sales, it's the same game. Again, I'm putting time, I'm putting in money. How do I recognize the ways in which I can be more cost efficient, reduce the time in my sales cycle, increase conversions by talking more about the right things? Does that require education for me? Does that require training? Am I the sales agent here? What if I replace myself in my time with another person who's capable of representing this company in its sales functions? Okay, great. What does that cost me additionally? But as a result, how much time do I buy back? So these are your two kind of main levers, right? Time and money. Invest more in one to try to reduce costs in the other, or even not try to reduce costs, but still increase the total output of that particular section of your business's engine model. That's something we could, drill down piece by piece and kind of talk about all the different opportunities. I'm not trying to say I'm like a marketing expert, like in digital. Like, I should tell you exactly how you should run your SEO. I'm aware of SEO.
And the leads are not getting responded to in a timely manner, or they're being responded to with the wrong campaign, or I could go on and on.
There could be a million different ways in which, regardless of how you're approaching the work, there are some fundamental operational questions you have to ask yourself that determine, like, am I leaking a bucket somewhere?
Yes,
Right.
I like to call it, you have the air conditioning on, but the window is wide open, right? And no one wants to do that. No one, but yet most of us are doing that. And I could see it so blatantly as I started to prospect. And I know that my first 10 years in real estate, it was literally pieces of paper. I'd pick it up and have a phone number on it. I'm like, who the heck is this? Or a name and a number. Like, okay. And I just feel like, hi, this is Jen. I found your number on a piece of, it was so bad. Because I had a total referral based business. And then, I did get into a CRM, but it felt so restrictive to me. But I can see now how much money I left on the table because of that. And now I'm working to understand that I get to have these systems and these operations so that I can have the outcomes that I desire. And so sometimes you have to just be able to see that end game. This is what I want. This is what I want. And then come to somebody like you that they're going to help you make sure to get those results, like you said, faster, spending less money, less frustrating, because there's no synergy, right? So we're making these calls, we're talking to these people, we're taking these actions and this and that. And then I can't even remember 2 weeks later. Up to me, leaving it up to this brain, right? Because I am a visionary too. I got those issues. So
I don't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday, and that's okay. I don't remember the details of my calls last week.
Exactly.
But I can click on, I have a limited number of clicks that I'm away from in order to get access to that information. And I can usually from there pick up right where I left off, mentally speaking, because the notes that are taken, especially with today's, AI systems, they do a ton of justice, right? To kind of sparing you from having to perform that recall yourself, even if it's with the most detail oriented notes that you could have possibly taken by hand and notepad. Not to, not to diminish any of those efforts. I think, handwriting notes is fantastic. I just think it's also just as amazing to have good handwriting notes that kind of summarize what matters to you most in that particular instance, and then being able to go to the raw recording and whatever summary transcripts, any data that's available there that you may have to kind of nitpick at and ask AI to kind of give you, hey, what was that thing? What was that? What did that EPK term? I wrote that EPK term. What did that mean? Oh, it meant electronic press kit, right? Serving a client who's creating press kits for their speakers. It's like, okay, did I need to write all that down and know all that? Thankfully, I had the fidelity of a system to look back on to kind of help me remember that one critical detail as I was referring back to it. But it's systems like that can be really helpful in knowing how to access them and how to get them set up so that they're working for you and you're not necessarily having to work for them in order for them to work for you as well. So for, the number of these systems, either some kind of automation or workflow is feeding the data into the place where I know where to go find it. So I don't have to spend as much time trying to put all the resources together. CRM tends to do a really solid justice of this by design. Otherwise, sometimes systems aren't that simple and easy to bring one source of information to another. Maybe I need data entry as a job in my business, and I'm not going to be the one to do it because an assistant from the Philippines who is very cost effective can do that. And it's just one small thing that they have to do amongst a bunch of other things that I might need their help with. But that again comes back to that whole spirit of I'm building that. I'm taking part in recognizing that those things need to be built so that I don't have to constantly be responsible for them, so that this business can grow without me having to take care of every little minor responsibility or major responsibility that will come to exist as things become more and more expansive and in some cases complicated. Complicated doesn't have to mean complex. Doesn't have to mean it's do or die in a bunch of different scenarios. It's just, oh no, I've just added one more fundamental layer to the system, and I have to choose: am I going to take on that fundamental layer? Or am I going to give it to somebody else or something else? The answer is probably the latter, because you still have to focus on the next fundamental layer.
Yes.
Jen, one thing I wanted to circle back on, which is your comment about the window and the AC.
Yeah.
I think in a real estate frame, it becomes really obvious when our electric bill is going up, that our AC is on, and we suddenly realize like there's a draft somewhere, right? One of the weird things about business that I recognize is that the drafts are not always obvious. Sometimes, part of the problem with folks is they don't know what expectations to have in terms of how cool their building should be, given how often they've been running the AC to what level, and and their costs and all, right? So maybe a good tangential expectation is, I'll use networking as an example. I meet 100 people this month, which is a lot. I meet 100 people this month, let's say. And amongst those 100, I do or do not have a clearly written down system for, if I meet someone new, here is where I go do my homework on them. Here is where I go make sure I have some kind of contact information piece from them, a phone number, an email, added them on LinkedIn successfully so that I can DM them. Here is my protocol for DMing them. Here's my protocol for, as part of my studies of I've met this person, who could they be to me? Should they be my next networking partner? Should they be my next referral partner? Should they be my next channel partner, content partner, strategic partner, prospective client, prospective provider? Could they do anything for me? Could they do a better justice of taking my money and giving me back some of my time in a way that I could never possibly imagine? Like, you can speculate business all you want. You have to procure for it too. You have to figure out where to trade your money for your time as much as your time for your money, right? Yeah. That's the responsibility of a good merchant. So all these considerations, right? You have all these different pipelines to assume about what a person could fit in. Find out where they fit. Maybe they just don't fit anywhere. That's great. Don't spend time on them. Like, great meeting you. We'll touch base in a year. But for the people who are interesting to some degree, that like you feel like you can do something with, check in with them tomorrow. Because you have protocols that say, if this person is prospective in your world, there's something to speculate about them, partnership, client-wise, provider-wise, go close that loop.
Yes.
You've opened it, go see it through. Now, all the things that you need to do that, all the administrative responsibilities, the communications, getting time on the schedule, the back and forth, feel that for a moment and go, if that was taken care of with me, I don't even have to say for me, with me, would that free myself up to get more of this stuff done without letting those opportunities slip through cracks, aka without leaving windows open? Now you have a better sense of what it actually means to leave that window open.
Yes, I love that. Yes. Because you can't, and it is very true. You can't feel it like now, because this is a very different kind of business that I'm building. I can sense it, but it's not as direct as in real estate. Like, immediately, like you're not
familiar with this house.
Right.
You're still building it, right? And there are some things that you kind of need to learn about it to a degree to really understand like what exactly it is that you're building here in terms of structure.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So what is the biggest myth about systems that you want to destroy today?
I didn't know I was on a warpath. I would say the myth that I've come to destroy often amongst my world of speculating business in the virtual assistance world specifically is this idea that in order to start delegating, in order to start stepping away from pure self-employment, or as I like to say, overly self-employment, that you need to commit a leap of faith effect, if you will. I see this, I'm going to badmouth my industry for a minute. I see folks who are required to commit a 20-hour per week commitment to a virtual assistance agency to acquire a labor talent whose job it is to free up your time and anxiety. There is nothing more anxious than having to put down 20 hours worth of help when you don't even know what 20 hours worth of delegation even feels like, let alone looks like, let alone sounds like. That's annoying to me. I think help should be able to find you as fractionally as you need it. And I think systems should be capable of being built within the time that you have, however little that may be. And so I think when you're in the journey of starting to build, You don't have to take these huge leaps into like, I need to go sacrifice 20 hours across my space in order to go build this. Chances are you do, but it doesn't have to be done all at once.
Right.
It can be done in piecemeal and in aggregate. And you can have milestones in systems development where you're reaping benefits as you go. You may not get the full benefit of what that 20-hour completed project of a system dev build out looks like. But frankly, you don't want to experience all that at once, because you're probably going to miss on understanding those little milestone events and how to go about appreciate them, let alone understanding them. So that if something ends up breaking in your system, which happens, then you can go back and you realize like, this was the section of the system that messed up when I went to, from hour 5 to hour 10 in this, broader system development, regardless of the fact that I'm keeping track of the time or not. This is something that when I made certain changes, I forgot to account for, these things that were, earlier on in the development process. Okay, go back, fix those things, like debug. Ironically, this is a lot of what happens in like the software development. We don't see this stuff behind the scenes, but building out features and creating all this, it comes with complications that impact the old stuff you did. Business is no different, right? You're creating these operating experiences, these models, these workflows that go from start to finish. And if you make some changes on one side, you may be impacting something that happens prior to that. You just have to figure that out and make sure that you understand that. So get to take your time. The myth again that I'm trying to destroy here is get to take your time on building these things out and slowly starting to reap the benefits, even if it slowly feels, impatiently difficult for you. Take the time that it actually needs and get the help that brings you to that time in a manner that also is at your discretion. Because you shouldn't have to feel like there's a gun to your head when you're in this spirit of building, unless you're trying to grow incredibly rapidly and incredibly quickly. Then sure, you're taking VC money and the gun to your head is someone else's return on investment within the next 5 years. Fair. But if not, figure it out, especially if it's your first run around. There's a lot you're going to learn as a result in the process. As you become more efficient and more capable and more experienced in building out and developing systems, then you'll be able to do them and pull them out a lot faster. You'll be able to like take whole system pieces that you built in the past and just replicate them again because you've already been down that path before, or you've worked with someone who has. Either way.
I love that, because oftentimes when people are stuck, when I work with a lot of people who get stuck, it's because they have this big goal, but they're not figuring out what is preventing them. What are the obstacles in their way? What are the little things and they're not taking care of those little things. They keep going to the big goal and they forget to like break it down into all those little moving parts. And again, it's counterintuitive because you make out the list of all the things and you get overwhelmed. But when you just start doing taking steps towards it one by one, creating a system, creating a process, all of a sudden you're that much closer to that big goal. So I love everything about that. So if someone wants to work with you, how do they find you? And how do they know they're ready to get started?
Sure. Jen, my company website is wearewellaware.com. Feel free to go check us out and reach out to us through our website, through our contact us page. I'm also going to invite you to reach out to me on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/in/Conrad Ruiz. And then finally, I'll leave my email address as well if you'd like to contact me directly that way. cruiz@wellaware.me.
Perfect. I love it. I love everything about this. And it's funny, we do similar things at very different levels. So it's two different leaps, right? One is the leap where you're ready to get started. I'm going to be the one to help you get you that blueprint that you need for those first 6 months. So you're ready to launch and you're scaling and you know how to grow from that capacity from day one. And then you'll be ready to go to someone like Conrad to take you to the next level. So whether that's someone just coming out of corporate, wanting to launch a business, give me a call. We can hop on a clarity call. Or you are ready to take that next leap and ready to break through your ceilings, then you're going to want to give Conrad a call. So I am so grateful for you to be here today and continue our friendship and our relationship. And thank you.
Thank you, Jen.